Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Bakukul Frostcoat the 31st. My name is Adam, and we're going to be reviewing Amber and Blood. This is the third and final book in the Dark Disciple trilogy written by Margaret Weis. Now, this is a spoiler review. So, if you haven't read this novel, or you just don't want to know what is contained therein, don't watch this video. Go, I don't know, have some drinks and light off some fireworks, because it is New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's, everyone. If you do want to hear what I have to say about this, well, then I welcome you to hang out and let me know your thoughts about this novel, because it is divisive. I'm going to say that straight up front. If you have any comments throughout the course of this conversation, by all means, put them in YouTube chat. And after I give you my pre-written review, we can just sort of rap a little bit about it. I got nothing else to do today, so let's have a little bit of fun. It's Friday. I actually have the day off, and it's pretty fantastic. I like it a lot. All right, so let's dive into this review. Book 1 begins with the gods standing around Mina as she was lying on the ground just after having raised the Tower of the Blood Sea to the surface for Chemosh. Majere and Mishakal reveal that Mina was created when the gods created Krynn. She was a byproduct that would have been destroyed by the other gods if Paladine and Mishakal told the other gods about her. They set her into an eternal slumber and placed her in the depths of Krynn's oceans. When Takisa stole the world away and was locating artifacts and magic to draw energy from, she discovered Mina and decided to corrupt her and use her to her own ends. Gillian forces the gods to swear an oath to let Mina find her own path and role in the pantheon of deities or without it. Everyone reluctantly agrees. Just then, Mina gets up and runs over to the edge of the battlements, leaping off into the ocean. Chemosh, refusing to let Mina go, now wanting to bring her to the dark side, sounds kind of like Star Wars, he turns to Ostrich Krell. He turns him into a bone acolyte and orders him to go and collect Mina. Now, Rhys Mason, Nightshade, and Atta are at the shoreline reflecting on everything that's just happened when this young child crying out for help washes up on shore. It's Mina, but she's reverted to her childlike form. They take her to the grotto temple of Zeboim, where they had recently escaped from in order to get her warm, and they're approached by Zeboim, who wants Rhys to stay with Mina. Majere also wants him to protect her until she makes a choice about where she's going to land. Zeboim warms them all up and leaves, and Krell arrives, but Mina is having none of his nonsense and basically ties him upside down to the ceiling with magic. Now, Mina wants to go to Godshome and wants Rhys to guide her there, but first she wants to collect a gift from the Soliofabalis beneath the Tower of Blood Sea. It's now Mina's tower, and all of the beloved from across Ansalon have been swarming to it since it was risen to the surface. They sail to the tower only to find that Mina doesn't recognize or like the beloved that she created, and they eventually make it into the tower with the beloved being held back somehow from entering. They meet the two black-robed wizards that are dormant inside of it, and they travel to the bottom, discovering the fish bowl that held the Soliofabalis in it, the Hall of Artifacts. The fishbowl has been destroyed in the raising of the tower. Mina reconstructs the fishbowl, brings them into the Soliofabalis. Rhys is struck by the holy nature of the area, like Mina was the first time she entered, and the black robes sneak in. Mina grabs a necklace of Takesis and a pyramid artifact of Paladine, and gives Nightshade a grasshopper cloak pin of Majere. The wizards try to kill Rhys, but are stopped by the artifacts of Mina, and they leave. Nuitari, furious, collects his wizard, and as Mina and the rest leave the room, Chemosh and Nuitari decide to enter the Soliofabalis. However, the High God is having none of it, and literally comes in and takes the Hall of Artifacts away, basically just smacking them on the back of their hand as they're trying to dip their fingers in the cookie jar. Kind of silly. Mina and the rest are trying to leave the tower, but the beloved are swarming around it, trying to get in. Finally, she's had enough and turns into her adult form and burns all of them away with her holy flame. Now, the beloved are no more. So I'm going to put a pin in my review here. So what was the point of the beloved? Chemosh thought he created them in order to be an army to defeat Sargonas's minotaur forces. Then Chemosh realized that the beloved didn't even care about him and only listened to Mina. Mina created them, but never gave a shit about him. So they were just this sort of byproduct of a whiny person. And I'm going to get into my problem with Mina in this novel at the tail end of it much more in detail. But this is incredibly frustrating. You start off a trilogy with this brand new creation that is different, inventive, exciting, and new, and by the end of the second novel, ostensibly, because this is the very beginning of the third novel, you just kill them all. What was the point? They didn't actually do anything. They were just a MacGuffin to get Rhys and Mina together. I'm sure there could have been another way to do that. It's so frustrating when they do stuff like this. All right. Now with their gifts in hand, Mina and the rest leave the island to travel to Godshome, and the tower sinks back under the Blood Sea, once again becoming Nuitaries. Book 2 picks up with the trio on the road. Mina insists on heading towards Godshome, but no one actually knows where it is. They decide to travel across Anslon to Solace, to ask the priest of Majere if he knows where to look. Mina insists that it should take only a day or so, and they are all visited by Chemosh and Zeboim. Chemosh tries to get Mina back, but she doesn't recognize him as in her child state, and Zeboim tells Mina that she can just fly to her destination. She doesn't have to travel, because even though Mina thinks it'll only take a day or so because she's looking at this large map on the ground, and she literally walks her feet from the Blood Sea to Solace, she's like, it's 3 steps. It should only be a day. And I don't even know children who think like that. It's just the most absurd. They took this character, Mina, who had this full character arc in the War of Souls that was earned and interesting and exciting. And they started her off in this trilogy, Margaret, with promise. And then in this final chapter, they turn her into a raving maniac idiot. It is so frustrating. And there's literally no reason to do it. They just did it. There's not even a good explanation as to why in order to justify it. It just is. It's like everyone just shit the bed and they just forgot how to write. It's so aggravating. Okay. So Mina actually tries to make everyone fly to Solace, but Rhys and Nightshade start freaking out and yelling at her to stop. Mina ends up speeding them on her way with her godly powers. In what would have taken a year to travel, only took a couple days to walk to Solace as they were just speeding through the Anslon. Upon arrival, they see a riot in the Temple Row. It turns out that the gods are fighting through their mortals. Chemosh tells his bone acolyte Osric Krell, former Death Knight, to capture Mina with a magical band and to kill Rhys. He plans on starting a diversion, and his bone warriors, with the priestess of Chemosh, will start a fire in Sargonus' temple, and then Krell will enter Majere's temple and claim Mina. When Rhys enters the temple, he talks with his priest who directs him to Valthonus, former god of Paladine. He had visited Godshome with Tanis and the companions, so it stands to reason that he could probably direct Rhys and Mina to it. The only problem is that Mina swore to kill Paladine at the end of the War of Souls, so if she happens to recognize him, it could spell trouble. A little foreshadowing here. Rhys agrees, and as Nightshade and Mina arrive to the temple, Krell's plan is put into action, and the priests of Majere leave to defend the innocents in the riot outside of the Temple Row, and it just becomes this maniacal battlefield. Krell binds Rhys and Mina as Nightshade casts a sleep spell on Krell. Mina escapes and heals Rhys, who is still bound, and runs away as she's the cause of all this. This is something that Mina does a lot. She bawls all throughout this book, just like whining and crying and moaning and life's not fair type stuff. This was Joan of Arc a couple books ago, and now she's a whiny, crying, snotty-nosed little brat. I can't get past it. It is a barrier to all logic. So Nightshade runs and pursues her. He comes across Jenna, the Red Robe Wizard, and he directs her to go help Rhys and runs after Mina with Atta. Jenna ends up freeing Rhys, who faces off against Krell, and a Bone Warrior is summoned and attacks Jenna. You get this kind of cool little moment where it's Rhys and Jenna in this temple room fighting off against Osric Krell and one of his bone warriors. And being able to get the perspective of Jenna having recognized these from pre-Istar histories, like the bone warriors and stuff, it was really, really, really interesting. And it added weight to the Bone Acolyte and Bone Warrior because they are supposed to be fearsome and terrifying. So it took the head of the Wizards of High Sorcery in order to defeat the Bone Warrior, and she barely got away. And the only reason why Rhys was able to beat the Bone Acolyte of Chemosh was because he was using the Emide, that staff that was a magical artifact from Majere. So it really put this wonderful scope of danger and consequence in the novel for the first time and last, which is really frustrating. Okay. Well, no, not the end of the consequences, but the end of logic with consequences. Okay, so Rhys ends up leaving after he defeats Krell to go see the battle winding down outside and finds Gerard wounded. He tells Gerard the whole story and is told that the Kender and Mina were seen leaving town. Book 2 ends with Rhys running after them. Book 3 continues with Atta and Nightshade and Mina as they traveled north and coming upon a cottage made by Mishakal to help wayward travelers. This is clearly just another god coming to influence Mina. In Mishakal's case, it's caring for her fellow lost god, ostensibly her daughter, and her companions. Eventually, Rhys arrives at the cottage, and Mishakal tells him that she can help them find Valthonis, but Sargonis is sending minotaurs to him as well, and it may end up in a battle. If Rhys wants to continue, he can, but it might mean his death. Of course, Rhys accepts the responsibility, and after a couple of days, they magically awake in Naraka, where Mina arrived at the very beginning of the War of Souls. Galdar and a squad of minotaurs find Valthonis and his followers, and they attack them, intending to subdue and abduct Valthonis. But Valthonis doesn't want any violence, so he demands everyone has to stop fighting, and he will willingly leave with Galdar. The companions of the walking god follow behind the minotaurs as they all travel to Naraka. Galdar and Valthonis come upon Rhys and Mina turns into the War of Souls Mina, the commanding officer, and demands that Galdar go attack Sanction. She's reliving past memories. Galdar realizes that she's not completely all there in the head and tries to explain to her that he's there on behalf of Sargonis to deliver Valthonis to her so that she will kill him and become the new Queen of Darkness. Mina changes to her post-War of Souls self and demands Galdar's sword so she can murder Valthonis. Here is a massive inconsistency that we're about to get that was just laid down. Galdar admits that he, on behalf of Sargonis, delivered former Paladin, now named Valthonis, to Mina so that she could kill him. And now, Rhys counsels her against killing him, and Galdar actually ends up siding with Rhys, saying that he wants nothing to do with the murder. Well then, why did you bring Valthonis to Mina, you dumbass? Again, I can't help but stress, none of this makes any sense at all. If you didn't want murder on your hands, why did you bring the god to Mina so that she could murder him? What is the point of any of this? Okay. Galdar cuts Valthonis free and then turns and walks away. Mina loses her freaking mind. She knocks Valthonis down and leaps and attacks Galdar, striking him with her fists and taking his sword from him, beating him with his own sword until he's nearly dead. Rhys jumps in to stop her, grabs her around the waist and sort of pulls her off of Galdar. She busts Rhys in the mouth so hard it literally breaks teeth and his jaw, breaks teeth out of his mouth, blood goes spurting, he starts suffocating, she punches him in the chest, he can't catch his breath, he's suffocating on his own blood, laying down dying, Galdar's laying down dying, Atta, Rhys' dog, can't stand to see anyone attack Rhys, it's a good dog, so it goes and leaps after Mina. Mina kills the damn dog! Like, of all crazy things, she takes the sword and, I mean, she doesn't, let me be fair, I say kill, like she killed Rhys and Galdar. He's not dead. She didn't die. She cuts the dog like on the shoulders. The dog can't really get up or attack or anything. So it's laying there all wounded, all beat up. However, Nightshade, now realizing there's nothing he can really do, but he doesn't want to see his friends beaten down and die for no reason, attacks Mina. Mina grabs Nightshade by the top knot, breaks his neck, and throws him on the ground, and Nightshade is the one that gets killed. Not Galdar for going against Mina's desire, not Rhys for attacking Mina and trying to get her to stop killing Galdar, not Atta for, again, attacking Mina to defend Rhys, but the kender, who didn't want anything to do with any of this in the first place, is the only person that ends up dying. This hit me harder than I remember it hitting me the first time I read it. It's so nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense why that is the character that ends up dying, and especially when that character has been built up to such a wonderful, endearing character. It's a kender, but it's not like other kender. You know, it's rational, it's logical, it's a great character, and then just to kill him, why? Because someone has to die? It doesn't... It's like punching your kid in the face for them spilling milk. It makes no sense. Why would you do that? It's just spilt milk. I don't know. It really, really got to me. So, Valthonis gets up, sees the devastation laying all around him, and he begins to care for the wounded and covering up Nightshade, the dead kender. Mina knows that she cannot be a god of light with all the evil that she's done, and doesn't want to be a god of darkness. Valthonis and Mina end up heading out to Godshome. Rhys wakes up with Galdar and the other minotaurs tending to him and Atta, and they leave out of the valley and meet up with the other wanderers of Valthonis. The mute elf that was traveling with Valthonis picks up Nightshade's corpse, and they all leave Naraka. This flashes back to Mina and Valthonis arriving at Godshome, and Mina gives up the artifacts to the pool and ultimately chooses to be a goddess of tears, open to anyone who needs her, taking the position of neutrality, thereby maintaining balance. This is a crazy notion, that neutrality has the majority of gods now by 2. It was the desire of neutrality over the world that led to the creation of the Grey Gem in the first place. I can only imagine the hell that will come out of this story if ever these other novels address it. Now, ultimately, Mina's journey would have been so much more satisfying if she hadn't been a whiny child throughout this entire novel. She was so attractive in the first novel, mysterious and wavering in the second, and now utterly disappointing as a character to have regressed to nothing. We watched her grow through the War of Souls. Why take all of that growth away? What real purpose did it serve? It was just annoying to read. And why did Nightshade die? Because someone had to? I'm not against character sacrifices in a story, but I don't understand why Mina was acting the way she was throughout the novel, as it is never explained in any semblance of satisfying ways. And then, to murder the heart and soul of the entire trilogy thus far? No. It felt more like dramatic shock value than anything else. In fact, this whole novel was frustrating to get through, and that is terrible because I loved the first novel, and I really liked the second novel. It reminds me of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, how there was no plan at all, and it was just sort of made up film by film. This probably was not the case with this trilogy, but the fact that it feels that way is really frustrating, as I really enjoy this author's work, and I love this campaign world. For this to be the last novel written in it is, well, frankly depressing. I would not recommend this book to anyone who likes the character of Mina, the author, Margaret Weis, or the Dragonlance world. If you are a completionist, then definitely read it, of course, but you will not be satisfied by it. It left me feeling hollow, and even with the little postscript of Nightshade returning as a ghost, I was wholly unsatisfied. Hero to Millions, thanks for joining live. You thought this was the weakest of the trilogy. You are absolutely right. It was so aggravating to read through this entire novel, just seeing what was once this incredibly empowered female character reduced to a stereotype, a trope of a whiny little spoiled brat. And it doesn't make any sense. She gets these like moments of revelation of, I'm Mina, I'm a god, I'm going to destroy all of the beloved. And then just reverts right back to the child. To what end? It doesn't make any sense. And in the very end, there's no actual growth involved. And I know in the appendix of this novel, they say that Mina is not in the pantheon of Krynn's gods, thereby allowing it to remain in balance, which it doesn't, because still neutrality has more gods than the others. That is imbalance by numbers. And that she is both catering to neutral good and neutral evil characters, thereby maintaining her own balance. That's all bullshit. That is all spin in order to justify your making this wonderful character into a god, but having no plan on how to deal with it. I really do think that when this first book was written in this trilogy, everyone was just like, this is amazing. I can't wait. And then they're like, well, what are we going to do with the second book? And then she writes the second book and they're like, oh, well, that's pretty good. And the third book, she's like, I don't know how to end this damn thing. How do I write a whole book when they already said that she's a god at the end of the second book? What's the third book going to be about? And they totally shit the bed. Honestly, the last novel you read before this was Amber and Iron. I don't get to read this when it came out, and you're kind of glad you didn't. That hurts. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining live. Yeah, if you end with the second book, it's actually more satisfying, even though you don't know what happens. Because as soon as you realize what happens, you are not satisfied anymore. You're just frustrated. And the thing is Margaret Weis is a great writer. I really enjoy her work. I don't know what happened. And I guess every writer has to have one novel that just sucks. And this is definitely it for me. This novel sucks. And it's what makes it worse is I remember reading this when it came out and actually enjoying it. So I don't know what Stockholm syndrome I was going through when I read it that first time. Because revisiting it this time, I was like, what the hell is this? Why? Like, the whole time I'm thinking, oh, but she's going to justify why she's acting this way. No, she'll explain why she's acting this way. Oh, they're going to explain why they killed off the kender. No, it was all just sort of a whim. It was just because I said so, which isn't good enough. It just isn't as far as a narrative is concerned. It's what you tell your kids when you don't want to talk to them, not when you're crafting a story. So pissed off. I'm so mad. But that's it. That's the end of the story. Like, that's the end of the review. Like, it's me being wildly frustrated, understanding wholly why people hate Mina after having read this book again years later after it was initially released. And it's so frustrating because the Mina in the War of Souls was so great. How she ended was so great. Could you talk about the huge editing mistake in the hardcover version? Pages repeating themselves. The error was fixed in the paperback, but it was annoying reading the hardcover. I read the hardcover. I did not notice pages repeating itself. I wonder if I got a reprint version. Because that was not in it. There were typos, like a lot of typos, which was shocking to find in a novel, especially if what you're saying is true, then that means this is a reprint. And the fact that there's typos in a reprint is really weird. Wouldn't they take another second look at it? I don't know. So that is weird that there would be repeat pages and stuff. But it was not my experience. So I don't know. I mean, the truth is I came into this remembering enjoying it and wanting to like it, because the first novel in this trilogy is amazing. It is like one of my favorite Dragonlance novels, just because it's adult, it's a little bit sexier than the other novels. It deals with ideas of darkness and evil, and I just kind of dig that stuff. Osric Krell was always kind of a whiny bitch, and I never really liked him as a Death Knight. But to be fair, any Death Knight compared to Lord Soth is going to suck, simply by comparison, because Lord Soth was the tits, man. He was awesome. I don't know. I'm still sort of in this afterglow of sorrow. It's so frustrating. You wonder what sort of behind-the-scenes factors led to some of these decisions. I would like to know too, Brian. Here's the deal. I've actually reached out to Margaret Weis to speak with her, and her publicist responded. So I may be able to have her on for an interview. Ultimately, I want to talk to her about Dragons of Deceit and everything that she's able to talk about in that, if I do get the opportunity. But I'm going to be bringing this up for sure. Like, hey, so what happened with Ember and Blood? Because that trilogy was great until the end. You know, I want to know what you think about that as the author. You know, was it you mailing it in? Was it you thinking that you were, you know, doing it justice and it just wasn't received well? I don't know. So I'm hoping that I can end up connecting with her and talking to her about it. Because ultimately, when you put some work out into the world, it's going to get criticized. And I don't want to upset anyone, but I certainly want to understand, you know. And the truth is if people read this and they enjoy it, I think that's great. I just didn't. And so if you really love this, then I'd love to hear why, you know, because I want to be able to share a little bit of that if in no other way than vicariously through your enjoyment, you know, because I did enjoy it the first time I read it. I do remember enjoying it. Oh well, people change. I certainly seem to have. Thank you all so much for tuning in live. That's going to do it for my review of Amber and Blood by Margaret Weis. What did you think of the trilogy? Do you enjoy these reviews I'm putting out there? Did you like how this trilogy ended? Let me know in the comments below, or you can always shoot me an email at info@dlsaga.com. I'd like to once again invite you to consider becoming a member of this channel and remind you that you can always pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link, all of which are in the description below. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga in an open and honest way. Even when I don't enjoy it, I'm going to celebrate it because I truly love this campaign world. And I'd like to thank you for joining me in that celebration. Once again, my name is Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.